Not no. So, hello everybody.
Okay.
I'm here to explain you this problem. I call that community as a human condition. First, let me explain you what's the issue of community. The issue, the matter of community is that one, the current commitment and necessity of keeping on thinking this concept. Why? Why is important? Community is a term that we also use in our quotidian language, but here we have very problems. In the quotidian evidence, we can see that we are in this world with others and that we live together. That implies that there are others like me and we interact each other. That's the general condition in the usual language for the use of community concept. But now we have the traditional sense of term. The traditional sense of term suppose that the community defines itself for something that all the elements of the community have in common. For example, we can see here a community, but we can suspect for this element. In a community of brown people, the red personage, the red character can be a stranger, for example. But, for example, let me show you this image. We can see here community. Every element, every person of this community is different from each other. But we can see the notion of community because everyone has something in common. In this case, the shape. The shape, for example. Yes? That's a tricky point. As a kid, I loved watch TV and I loved watch Sesame Street. And there was a game in some of these things, so not like others. And for me, I love this game. For example, we can see that this element come out from this image, or this element. And that's fine when we learn and we develop our logical form of thinking. But now I can find this kind of thinking perverse when we apply this in order to think people. What's the problem? We have in this image many persons, but this one is not like others. We and the others that are not like us. Then, this traditional sense of the term of community have many assumptions. Individuality, each term is one. The group is a group of many individuals. They have in common an attribute, like a property, form, shape, color, and they are a community because they are similar. So, we can ask what have in common the members of a community. Wow. That is the problem. The common as arbitrariness. You can see here many elements. If I ask you to set up groups of elements, you can order these elements with many different patterns. For example, this term can make a group with this term, on this term, on this term, because they have the similar shape. They are circles. But if I can see also that this term can make a group with this term and with this term. Now I have not my concentration in the shape, but in the color of each element. So that's ambitions relative, the sense of community now. And the risk and consequence of this kind of term are many. Because, for example, racism, xenophobia, war, nationalism, or fundamentalism. Then, the answer that I want to present you is the term of communitas. Communitas is another sense of the term of community that make an approach, but not in the similarity, but in the difference. A community is a community of difference. Each element is different from another, and from this difference comes the value or the the value or the force of a community. Then in this kind of community, the difference is an operation. We are in a community because we are different one of each others, and because of this difference we can evolve, we can live, and we can grow up like human beings. Thanks. Questions? No
Yes,
questions?
I have. But I'm not completely sure about it. I mean, you show the concept of community,
Comunitas? Yes.
communitas, and you show that imagine
The toolbox.
The toolbox. So there you show us that the elements are different, and because of that they can work together as a community. But in that case, all that elements are tools. So in some way, behind the concept of communities still remain the concept of similarity, or
That's a tricky point. For an author, Roberto Esposito, we have actually two operations. The community is a condition of the human being. Each person are different from each others, but there is another operation that we call like the medical language or the biological language, immunity. Immunity come from the biological language and from the legal language. So the first condition is that each element is different from each other, but the similarity comes next from the difference, not first.
okay.
And if we put our attention in the difference, then we can understand the similarity like as an arbitrariness. Then we can move in many sense of the community. We can, for example, we are here men and women, but in other point of view, we are all Colombian people, for example, or we are all grad students. So the sense of similarity is not the central point of a community. We are not defined for what we have in common, but for what are we different.
what's the last question? Can you go back to the toolbox?
The toolbox, that's
Yeah. When I see that image, I think, okay, everyone is different, but everyone is useful.
Yes.
Way, it's a tool for the community. What happens when no one can see the usefulness or a member of the community? It's very similar to be someone who is different.
Unuseful.
From,
Yes. That's the point. That's only an analogy, and
But actually
not
it's
all
true.
the analogy is a good or happy analogy. The point is that I have no time to explain this point. The usefulness of a member is a tricky point because the difference operate when produce the members of a community. The example is not so tricky. If we have a newborn here, and then you have an old man here, you can see that the price of survival is changed. I can tell you, oh, I was this boy, I was this newborn. But in some other sense of term, I am older as this one. And that's because I interact with people and things and energy and so on that are different from me. So I survive, but I am different for me in each second that I survive. The price of survival is changing. That's the question here.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.